Just a question before we begin. Are we still expecting James and Tim? I assume so. There's James.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak. I haven't received any correspondence that they would not be attending. So I have my fingers crossed. I see that we have Councillor Lang, and I'll let you know if I'll keep an eye out for Councillor Alphick in the attendees section of the agenda. I know sometimes he logs on that way. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is now 7 o'clock, so we can start the meeting. Our August 24th, 2021 council meeting. Have a motion moved by Steve, seconded by Kim, that Council of the Municipality of Brockton accept the agenda for the regular council meeting on August 24th, 2021 as presented. All those in favor? That motion carries. And I'll remind you to declare a pecuniary interest now or at any time during the meeting. Should one arise. Yes?
I've sent in a conflict of interest form with respect to bylaw 13.2.
Thank you. And now we have a recognition for Don Clark. Perhaps Mr. Clark, if you can, there we go.
Hey,
Welcome, Mr. Clark. Great to have you with us this evening.
no problem.
So on
It
behalf
looks
of,
like you're settling into retirement quite nicely.
It's not bad. I can't complain. Been pretty good so far.
on behalf of the municipality of Brockton, we do have a certificate of recognition for you, and people who know you do know you as a conscientious and dedicated employee who has maintained a positive service-oriented relationships with staff and clients in multiple facilities, including the libraries, fire hall, road shops, and childcare. So we wish Don well with his retirement plans and more time to pursue his passion for fishing and family. Thank you, Don, for your 30 years of commitment to the municipality of Brockton. And if you do have any special fishing spots that you'd like to share with us, please let us know about that too. So
I could do that. Yeah, no problem.
thank you, Don.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.
You're welcome.
Enjoy your retirement.
Awesome. Thank you.
Best regards. Bye now.
Bye.
So no public meetings required under the Planning Act. We do have a delegation this evening, Mr. Daniel Kingsbury from the Bruce County Planning Department. Mr. Kingsbury.
Just a point of order for Deputy Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Item 4.3 in the closed session, I asked tonight that it be removed as it's irrelevant for any discussion moving forward. I don't think it's irrelevant for tonight's meeting with what has happened last meeting. If it can be removed for the sake of time.
I think that's a discussion we can have in closed session. Councillor Lang, I don't believe we need to approve that agenda at this point.
It's a part of the approval of the agenda tonight, no?
Yeah.
Well,
Through
Fiona,
you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak, yes, although generally speaking, because it is in the closed session, there is a separate motion to approve the agenda specifically for the closed session. And I think that would be an appropriate time to amend that motion to say, accept the agenda with the removal of that item. So I would suggest that the closed session would be an appropriate time to do that based on the closed session motions. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
so we'll look at approving that closed session agenda as amended based on your suggestion.
Yeah, understood, Deputy Mayor. I will move that in closed session, and I will look for another motion based on that item when we speak to it at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang. And moving on, again, we have Mr. Kingsbury from the Bruce County Planning Department. There you are.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Gerzak, and good evening, members of council. So yes, I'm here to provide a delegation on one of the projects that the county's planning department is working on. It's a growth management strategy for the county, and the project is called Plan the Bruce, Good Growth. I'm presenting it with a colleague. So I'm just getting a live update. Adam Fisher from Watson and Associates and his colleague Jamie Cook, who seems to be having some issues connecting to the meeting this evening. Adam is on the line though, and perhaps can get us started. There is a presentation to accompany the delegation this evening. I don't know if Fiona, if we handle that or.
Yes, if you just give me 1 second here, I'd be happy to play through some slides. Just give me 1 second to get things set up. Thank you. Sure.
And while Fiona's doing that, I can maybe give and there's Jamie as well. So I can maybe give a bit of context just on the history. We started this project about 1.5 years ago. It's been quite the journey, delayed somewhat because of COVID. We started just, I believe, when COVID, just before COVID started to cause an impact. So it's sort of a fortuitous time to undertake a growth management study because we're experiencing a lot of growth related and demographic related trends in the county, especially recently with COVID. So without any further ado, I'll pass it on to my colleagues with Watson and Associates, who can take you through their analysis as it relates to Brockton.
Great, thanks, Dan. And good evening, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council and staff. Again, my name is Jamie Cook. I'm a managing partner with Watson and Associates. And it's a pleasure to be able to speak to you tonight about the results of the Bruce County Growth Management Strategy and some of the implications of these findings on the growth forecasting work and allocation work for the municipality of Brockton. So if we can start the first slide. Just to provide a bit of an introduction, as just building on Dan's comments. So our firm was retained back in the winter of 2020 to undertake a long-term growth management strategy for the county of Bruce. And this analysis is intended to inform a comprehensive review to the county's official plan review, which is now underway. And one of the key aspects of this analysis is to look at long-term population, housing, and employment growth, as well as urban land requirements for the county, each of its local municipalities for the next 25 years. So in March of 2021, we did release an interim report. It was called Plan the Bruce, Good Growth. And that report was then followed by consultation with key industry stakeholders and the area municipalities throughout the spring of 2021. And some of the overwhelming feedback we received from that review was that overall there was concern that the forecast was too low for the county, and then many of the area municipalities also noted that their respective forecasts appeared to be low given recent trends that they've been experiencing, particularly as a result of the impacts of COVID. So we've gone back and taken a look at that, and that's a key focus of tonight's presentation is to talk about those results and the implications for the municipality of Brockton. So if we can go to the next slide. So if you can just go down, thank you. So as I mentioned, the county's GMS was broadly informed through engagement and consultation with county council, as well as the local municipalities, key staff from the local municipalities, as well as key stakeholders from the community. And through this consultation process, a key theme that emerged, as I mentioned, was that the housing forecast and the resulting population and employment was too low and should be revised prior to the final results being released this fall. So as part of that review, our team did go back and take a look at the comments received from the area municipalities. We also looked at additional data that was available to us since the release of the draft report, and during that time when we were collecting some of the initial information in preparation of the draft report, we were able to take a further look at recent trends, and particularly in the light of the impacts of COVID, particularly on the residential growth forecast. We also took a look at the latest Ministry of Finance projections, and as a result of that work, concluded that the long-term forecast for Bruce County did appear to be low. The Ministry of Finance projections have been steadily projecting more growth for this area of the province over the last 4 years, but they have shown a significantly stronger increase in growth from the 2020 to 21 projections. And then in addition to that, we did look at local information provided by each of the area municipalities with respect to recent development activity and active development applications in the development approvals process. And in many cases, we did confirm that the forecast for Bruce did need to be revised and increased. The next slide shows the results of that analysis. And you can see here, we've prepared 3 overall long-term forecasts for the county, a low projection, medium projection, and a high projection. The medium projection, or the reference scenario, is the scenario that we are recommending to go forward in the growth management strategy and its background to the official plan. So that forecast projects an increase of growth from about 68,300 people as of 2016 based on the census to a total of 93,600 by 2046. Relative to the previous forecast, that's an increase of about 7,400 people and represents a growth rate of about 1.1% over the long-term period. As I mentioned, through our review, we had already noted a significant increase in the rate of growth relative to historical trends, and that increase has been largely a result of a number of factors. One being that the county's overall economic outlook has improved quite significantly since following the recovery of the economic downturn in 2008 and 9. So around 2015, we started to see a change in the overall rate of economic growth and population growth rates in Bruce County. You can see that already starting to show up in the 2016 census. Since that time, there's been significant outward growth pressure that really started back prior to the pandemic, largely as a result of declining housing affordability within the Greater Golden Horseshoe, particularly in the GTA. And then through the pandemic, that outward growth pressure has essentially just been accelerated through 2020 and 2021, and we expect to see that pressure continue over the medium and long term. So we're trying to take a look, a longer term outlook of growth for the county, each of the area municipalities, looking prior to COVID, during COVID, and post-pandemic trends. And through that review, we have concluded this higher rate of growth. Relative to the province, a 1.1% rate of growth is pretty comparable to the provincial growth rate, but it's about 4 times historical average if you just compare the 2006 to 16 numbers, for example. So quite an increase in the overall amount of growth that we're anticipating in permanent population. On the next slide, this slide here shows the overall amount of housing growth that we're projecting for Bruce County as a whole. Corresponding with that increase in the population, we're projecting a fairly significant rate of housing growth overall. An increase from 28,200 to about 40,100. So that's about just under 12,000.
You appear to be frozen.
Additional households over that 30-year prepared in the draft report. It's about 3,300 units higher. I'm just going to comment about my internet connection, so I'm going to just turn off my video. Moving on to the employment forecast, we also took a look at the long-term employment growth trends. So when we're talking about employment on slide 6, we're talking about the amount of jobs within Bruce County. So these are all the people who live and work within Bruce County, as well as people who commute from other areas of the commuter shed into Bruce County for work. And if we could just scroll down a little further on slide 6, you'll be able to see the long-term employment forecast for the county. And this forecast identifies an increase of about just over 13,000 jobs overall within the county of Bruce. increasing from about 29,800 in 2016 to about 43,000 by 2041. And in the line graph, you can see here, this is a measure of the employment activity rate. So this is just looking at the ratio of population to or employment to jobs. You can see in 2016, the employment activity rate declines quite steadily from about 47% to about 44%, but has since increased quite significantly to about almost 48%. Quite a bit of that increase is the result of the Bruce Power refurbishment, and we expect to see that the Bruce Power refurbishment continue to put upward pressure on the employment activity rate in the near term to 2026. Over the long term, we do expect the employment activity rate to stay relatively well balanced at a rate of about dropping down from about 48% at its peak to about 46%. And that's because the population is aging and so is the labor force. And so that does have downward pressure on the overall rate of or ratio of employment to population. But overall, this does represent a well-balanced activity rate and a balanced relationship overall between employment and population. So moving forward on slide 7, this slide here shows the overall results of the increased forecast for the municipality of Brockton based on our higher growth rate for the county as a whole. And you can see, if you just look here, this is the overall rate of housing growth. It's showing housing growth in 5-year increments from 2016 to 2046. And as you can see, we are projecting quite a significant increase in the overall rate of annual housing growth compared to the historical period where we saw relatively modest housing growth in 2011 to 16, about 19 units per year, and then increasing slightly in the last 5 years to 28 units a year. We're projecting more than doubling of the annual housing growth over the next 25-year period at about 57 units a year. We expect to see that peak in housing occur by around 2031, and then we would expect a bit of a gradual decline in the rate of growth over the longer term, again, as a result of the aging of the population and slower growth more broadly for the broader regional market area. You can also see here that we're projecting a steady shift in the housing growth by structure type as a result of demographic trends, specifically the aging of the population and upward pressure on housing prices and declining housing affordability overall for the county and Brockton. We are expecting to see more a broader range of housing opportunities in the medium density household category. So that's typically townhomes, as well as more opportunities for higher density housing forms. So this would be typically low-rise apartments in the municipality of Brockton. So overall, when you compare that to the previous projections, we've increased the amount of housing quite substantially from about an increase of about 700 units to about 1,700 units. And a lot of that housing growth that we projected has already been identified within the development approvals process. About 1,100 units, or about 2/3 of our forecast, has already been identified to be in registered unveiled plans or draft approved plans or plans that are in pre-consultation. So that gave us a fairly strong indication working with the municipality that this demand is expected to materialize over the longer term period, given the amount of activity that's already in process. In terms of the overall population, we're projecting an increase in people in the county by about 3,500 people from about 10,000 in 2021 to about 3,500 people by 2046. And then in terms of the employment forecasts, as a result of the increased population, we are projecting more jobs within Brockton, particularly in what we would call population-related jobs, or jobs that are related to retail and institutional type employment that would be directly associated with the increased population. But we're also expecting steady growth in the industrial sector as well, and that's been detailed in the updated growth management strategy for the county. So turning to the next slide, slide 8, which is the results of the land needs analysis, we have prepared a detailed land needs analysis for urban lands for each of the area municipalities at the primary and secondary settlement area level. And we have identified that localized urban needs have been identified in some of the area municipalities over the long term. But these needs do have to be rationalized through the official plan or as part of the official plan through the lens of the broader regional market area, which would include a number of municipalities looked at more broadly, other than just the local needs of one municipality. And that will be discussed in greater detail as the county moves forward through their official plan review. But we have identified that as part of this analysis, even when we look at the local area needs of each municipality does have a sufficient amount of urban lands to accommodate growth over the next 15 years. And so when we look at the requirements of the province in terms of ensuring we have enough land to accommodate growth, we have satisfied ourselves that there is enough land within each of the area municipalities over the next 15 years. Over the next 25 years, as I say, these longer term needs will have to be rationalized for the broader context of land needs within the official plan review. There is an opportunity for the municipalities to relook at this through the county's updated official plan review process. So even though this forecast is looking at over a 25-year period, we will be reopening up these projections at a minimum every 5 to 10 years to re-examine the near-term and longer-term trends. And they will also be subject to ongoing monitoring. So as I mentioned, an important factor right now to consider is just that there's no constraints to any of the area municipalities in terms of their near-term growth from now until the next official plan review by the county. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, we will be looking to finalize the good growth discussion paper that's being prepared right now towards the end of this month, and then we'll be presenting our final discussion paper results to the county at County Council in September of 2021. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you for that detailed, perhaps brief delegation. Councillor Lang, you have a question, comment, or concern?
Yeah, not more sort of concern, just a question. I think it's a positive report to see where we go with the expansion of Bruce County. My question would be for our hamlets, Elmwood, Chepstow, Cargill, zoning issues. Where would we support them in A1, and where would we make them a priority in urban? You know, we have an urban setting, Walker, where it's very simple within our town setting, but where does it come a norm with Cargill, Chepstow, Elmwood, in time, Riversdale, Eden Grove, Pinkerton? Where do we go from there from Bruce County report?
Good question. Thank you. Mr. Cook.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to start this question, and maybe Dan may want to also provide some further comment. So through the work that we've done through the GMS, we've laid out the growth projections and allocations for each area municipality, then we've allocated that growth to primary and secondary settlement areas as identified in the current Bruce County official plan. So we've basically gone down to that secondary settlement area where we typically have areas that are fully serviced today on municipal water and wastewater. Over time, though, there may be further review that will be undertaken, I think, largely through the Bruce County official plan review, as well as local official plan reviews about your own urban structure at that more granular level. And so if there are decisions that are made to focus growth, increase growth and on full municipal servicing to other settlement areas, that's something that could be looked at and directed through the ongoing official plan review work. But at the moment, we've provided our analysis down to that existing secondary settlement area level. I would also just note that when you get into an allocation of growth at that more granular level, so when you start looking at hamlets and smaller settlement areas, it gets much harder to have precision in terms of where growth is going to occur. It becomes a lot less about the economics and supply demand as it does about the direction that you're trying to ultimately take in terms of where you're trying to prioritize development. So right now, the way that the provincial documents are written and the county documents are written is that growth is largely being prioritized to your primary settlement area, and only moderate growth would be considered or looked at within secondary settlement areas or areas that are currently not identified as secondary settlement areas. So it's something to consider in terms of the overall hierarchy of growth and where you're looking to prioritize urban development over the long term. So I'll leave it at that. If there's anything else that maybe Dan wants to add, happy to turn it over to him before we finish that comment.
Further comment from Councillor Lang and then Councillor Lifeso.
Yeah, I think just a follow-up, Jamie used the words prioritize in our urban settings, and Walkerton is our larger, obviously, urban setting for our municipality, but we do we don't look at Chepstow, Cargill, Elmwood as our secondary. I mean, those are communities that have been successful now. Hopefully that we get gas here in the near future, that those can be, urban settings that are just with par with Walkerton and have the ability to have subdivisions or development just like what we have in our, what you refer to as our primary urban development. So I would really like to see the support from county for these communities that are, maybe not as big as Walkerton, but there was a time where we had to amalgamate, and I would like to see our small communities within the municipality of Brockton be in line, not secondary, not third, be in line with Walkerton.
Very good point, Councillor Lang. It is a little bit of a concern that references to full services in those smaller communities, when at the same time we see things out of the provincial policy statement that speak to a mix of housing. And it would seem that the housing that's not included might be housing that has a septic system as opposed to a service like a sewage system. So I do believe that it is something we need to spend a little bit more time with, and perhaps communicate more formally to the county our interest in those smaller hamlets. Councillor Lifeso.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just actually, I had another comment, but I want to follow up on that because I got confused, slightly bewildered when you're talking about primary, secondary. So you refer to secondary as full service? So I'm just wondering what's the difference between primary and secondary. And as Councillor Lang said, where do the hamlets fall in? Are they unsettled territory? Like, what's the definition for them then?
Thank you. Mr. Cook or Daniel?
I
Sure.
can,
Go ahead.
yeah, sure. I can maybe take a stab at this through you, Deputy Mayor. The county official plan does have categories for its settlement areas. Primary urban and secondary urban are the two settlement area categories, and then there's sort of all other settlements would be within that rural area, and that would include hamlets. So I would say that the role of hamlets is probably part of a broader discussion that will be had when the county updates its or undertakes its official plan review, which is just starting right now. So this growth management study or strategy will inform that, but it does not. It's not the last or the final point of discussion on the role of hamlets. I know there's a desire out there to review sort of the policies around hamlets, and that's certainly, I think, part of the county official plan update process.
Thank you. Any further comment, Mr. Cook, or from Councillor Lifeso? Follow up?
It's actually not a follow-up. It's a completely different question, I think. But when you're doing this, when you're doing the forecast, the planning, etc., just using Elmwood and to a certain extent, southern Brockton, they're not isolated. I mean, we border on Grey County to a large extent. So it's hard to talk about housing in Elmwood without referring to West Grey. And certainly when we look at north of Hanover, which is the southern part of Brockton, there is already a certain amount of housing and other commercial properties there. How does that work into it then? So for example, there's one property that is for sale just at the southern tip of Brockton. That would be part of, that is, that would, everybody considers as like, I can't remember the name of the street. That one's currently commercial. It was zoned for, say, high density or low density residential. Where does that fit in with this type of planning?
It's a great question, Councillor Liso. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through the GMS work, we've started with a very broad review. We go right, up to a more provincial focus, and we spent quite a bit of time in the discussion paper looking at the broader regional trends that are driving growth within the outward growth pressure that I mentioned in the presentation, which is a key aspect of the growth that's happening in this part of Ontario, including not only Bruce County, but also in Grey County and Huron and Perth and other areas and the surrounding area. We look more broadly at the commuter shed, so we're looking at where are people living and working, and we're looking also more broadly at what the opportunities are for employment within the regional market area and within that regional commuter shed. And then from there, we continue to drill down further into a more localized level, looking at each of the area municipalities and looking at historical trends, looking at what's in the development applications process, looking at the demographic and socioeconomic trends that are going to be driving growth going forward. So we do our very best to look at all the top-down and bottom-up factors that are driving growth within Bruce County and are affecting and influencing how growth is going to be allocated within each of the settlement areas.
I think there may be a piece that is very important to Brockton, and that is our agriculture industry. And perhaps the economics behind agriculture don't resemble, a factory urban setting. So again, that makes our hamlets very important to us if our large agriculture producers are looking for employees. And perhaps that's something that's missed a little bit. So we will continue to have interest in that area and see how we can support our ag industries.
I would note, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that we have noted in the report the importance of the rural areas and the hamlet areas, and that's come up pretty I would say pretty front and center in the report in terms of the overall demographic trends that we're seeing. Where we recognize that these smaller areas are seeing lower population growth, they're seeing declining housing occupancies, which is also putting downward pressure and so on the overall population growth. So we do recognize that these areas do need to have a measured amount of growth that's going to allow them to be vibrant, sustainable communities. We recognize that they're service centers to the rural community in the surrounding area. I do a lot of work across Ontario and in municipalities that have a blend of urban and rural development. It's really what I specialize in. So fully aware of these issues. And we have, I feel, addressed them in the GMS report, but as Dan has pointed out, this is only the beginning of the work that's going to be done through the county's official plan review, and then through your own local official plan reviews as well.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Lang, perhaps to close out this questioning.
Yeah, and just one last comment through you, Deputy Mayor, for Jamie. I think that's where we have to be important. I think you said it there, Jamie. When we conclude this report, we have to be very sensitive to the verbiage of this, where we use primary and secondary and things like this. This is amalgamated community. We have Walkerton, and yes, that is our larger community within our municipality, but Elmwood, Chepstow, Cargill, Pinkerton, Eden Grove, Glamis, those are all just as important as every other community. And we need to, when this report comes through, be mindful of each and every one of those and the individuals and taxpayers that are in those communities as well, because they're just as important as the person next door to us and on the 8th of Brant. So just my final thought on that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the report.
Thanks, James. Councillor Adams, final
Yeah, I'll
comment,
try to be
please.
brief, Dan. I know you want to move on, but I did want to say, when I first reviewed this, I thought 25-year window is awfully hard to peg down. And you look at what's happened in the last 12 months, 18 months with COVID, with low interest rates and so on. It's so hard to peg it. I know you guys have been adjusting it. I do like the fact that you're going to monitor it and you've got a 5 to 10 year window to adjust within. So I think that was really key. The other key thing that I noted in here was the infrastructure constraints. And I think that's something that we've tried to do. There's a report in the council package tonight for water, wastewater, and also standpipes. So I think that's really key. The question that I've got for you, though, just so we can move on, it talked about the primary settlement areas. It wasn't specific. I mean, we've got Walkerton, we've got Port Elgin, Kincardine, Wyerton, and so on. I'm wondering if you could speak to that, because you've got a fairly large inflation or increased number there, where that's coming from. And one of the questions I get from residents is, where is the population coming from? Because we've had really nice numbers of new houses in Walkerton, for example, Brockton in general. And people say, I wonder where the people are coming from. Is it organic or is it from outside? So the two questions, guys, is can you speak to the primary settlement areas? Are there certain areas that are going to see the numbers higher than others? And the second question is, where's our current growth coming from?
Sure, it's a great question, Councillor Adams, and through you, Deputy Mayor. So in terms of the first part of that question, where the growth is being allocated within the municipality and elsewhere throughout the county, the majority of the growth is being allocated to the primary settlement area of Walkerton. That is your largest urban center. It's obviously has a well-established base of population and employment. It's a hub of employment opportunities as well. And then to a lesser extent, more growth has been allocated to Elmwood as well through this process. And when we look at other areas throughout the county, we are also projecting more growth, again, largely allocated to the primary urban centers and secondary urban centers. Overall, more growth has been allocated to every municipality and every settlement area, but generally the larger primary settlement areas are growing the fastest and are expected to experience the most significant amount of the growth pressure. But that's not to say that other more localized issues won't occur. We will get more growth pressure occurring in some smaller hamlets that we've mentioned tonight. In terms of where the growth is coming from, where this pressure is coming from, it's largely coming from the Greater Golden Horseshoe. I would say to a large extent, it's coming from the western side of the GTHA. So that includes Peel region, Halton region, Hamilton, and then when we get out into the outer ring, areas like Wellington County and the region of Waterloo. And as we've been discussing tonight in the presentation, a lot of that outward growth pressure was already occurring prior to the pandemic. We saw that through updates we've done in other areas in your general region, in places like Perth County and Huron, where we're working. That started around 2015 as you started to recover from the 2008 and 8-9 economic downturn. And so local job growth and outward growth pressure from those areas has been the key driver. I would say that it's largely what we would call intra-provincial net migration. So a net migration from other parts of Ontario coming out to Bruce County. It's not being generated by natural increase. So natural increase is essentially the result of more births, less deaths. You have an aging population. You have a relatively low fertility rate, similar to the rest of the province. It's below the replacement level, around about 1.5 children per average per female in her lifetime. How many children that an average female would have. That's not enough to ultimately sustain the population. So you're very dependent on interprovincial migration. And so you will continue to be very dependent on interprovincial migration for more growth. And we would expect that trend to continue. And it's largely continuing because of this pressure on housing affordability within the Greater Golden Horseshoe, particularly for grade-related housing. And we would expect that to continue. And now with opportunities for remote work as a result of the disruption we've seen from COVID, we would expect some of these trends to be continuing. I think we will see some leveling off of this trend at some point in the post-pandemic world, but we don't see this trend going away. So the trajectory has changed, we feel, and we feel that will continue to be higher.
Thank you. Something to watch and difficult to predict. So thank you for that detailed response to Councillor Adams' questions. And thank you, Mr. Kingsbury and Mr. Cook. Moving on then. Moving on, we have a motion moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton adopt the minutes of the August the 10th, 2021 council meeting, August the 17th, 2021 special council meeting, and the August 18th, 2021 special council meeting, in brackets, Walkerton BIA information session as presented. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Adams.
Yes, from the council minutes 6.1, we had a discussion with regards to the airport, and I'm just wondering where we're going on that. There's been some further correspondence, and I believe the Fiona, the mayor, may have had some comments. I'm not here today, but did he have any suggestions or any thoughts with regards to where we're going with this?
Through you.
And the only, I would caution council with respect to expressing comments and opinions in open session. I have reviewed this with two integrity commissioners, and not only am I bound by legislation that restricts my ability to discuss these things in open session, the rest of council is as well. So having said that, please, Fiona, provide feedback to Councillor Adams as you think appropriate.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I know this has been a very challenging agenda topic, not only because of the legal issues that sort of prevent free speaking, but also because, as has been raised, the Saugeen Airport Commission is a separate corporate body, and that makes it very difficult for this council, as there are not a number of options and decisions that are within our jurisdiction. So one thought has occurred to me that I believe Mayor Peabody was in support of, and that is that we have this correspondence that's being directed to our council, and I suspect that that correspondence is being directed to other municipal councils as well. So one option, of course, could be a meeting of the representative mayors and the CAOs. And that could be done in conjunction with the airport representatives from the Saugeen Municipal Airport Commission. And that might just be a meeting to discuss this particular issue and make it clear what each of the position of each of the municipalities. And it might also be an opportunity to spark some discussion about rather than just focusing on one potentially negative situation, it's also an opportunity to begin planning positively for what the future of the commission might be, and keeping the communication between our municipal partners and the airport commission flowing and positive and strong. So that's maybe one thought that council could consider, and the commission could consider as well, but perhaps it's time to think about it sort of in terms of a shareholders meeting or a meeting with the mayors and CAOs, just to make sure that we would hate to have one municipality dealing with an issue and not feeling like there's communication with the other municipal partners as well. So that's maybe one idea. I believe Mayor Peabody was comfortable with, but it would certainly, and shared his thoughts about, but it's certainly up to this council, what steps you'd like to authorize your own representatives to make. And of course, as mentioned before, it is up to the Sauget Municipal Airport to make whatever decisions they feel are in the best interest of that separate corporation. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Councillor Lang?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I do go back to last meeting, and I asked a lot of questions last meeting based off of what I knew through the media and what I had heard through third party, and learning that there is no appeal anymore. So that is off the table. So everything that has been presented is public now. So to Councillor Adams' point, anything we discuss is quite public. And I would say for the sake of our council and our taxpayers that have been following along this, that if there is anything that needs to be said, I think it's safe to say. I'm not going to ask the questions again that I asked last meeting, but I do believe that we need to be transparent with our taxpayers. And I will say, like I said last meeting, and like council as a whole supported, remove the cinder block. Remove it, and let's move forward positively. And I know we can't take the offshoot of, it's still illegal. Let's get rid of the cinder block. Let's do what we can here for the said individuals, and let's move forward. And I'm not going to say any more tonight on that because we exhausted it last meeting.
I think it was well said, Councillor Lang, and I.
Councillor Adams, please address Councillor Lang through me if you would like to comment on this topic.
All right, through you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Gerzak, I just support what Councillor Lang just said. I think we need to come up with solutions. This has been ongoing for quite a while. I think we've passed some pretty significant points. I as well would like to see that block removed, and I would like to see us get some solutions and get past this and move forward to more positive things.
Thank you. And coming away from the last meeting, there was a recommendation that I share some of your thoughts with the commission, and I did do that. And coming away from that meeting, the commission further expressed an interest in reaching out to the proponent or to the individual involved. And again, we did that at the tail end of last week to see if there was some common ground. So I can say that the communication continues. And I am trying to schedule a special meeting of the commission for this Friday. So the topic that our clerk suggested through the mayor is something that I can put on the agenda for Friday as well. Okay, Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One of the points that was discussed at our last meeting related to payment of access fees. And through you, if you're able to comment, are you able to share with us if any direction was provided regarding payment or the acceptance of payment following our last meeting?
No, I don't feel comfortable sharing that information in open session. And perhaps that's a point that I can challenge Mr. Lang on.
I will say on a point of order that there's nothing that go into closed session anymore. This is a public matter. We are in a public situation. I will say, with all due respect, Deputy Mayor Gierzak, whether you're the chair of this meeting, speak to it tonight, because I will not beat around the bush anymore and lie or beat around the bush to our taxpayers that ask me a question that I can no longer give the answer to. So speak to it tonight. Speak to it tonight and say it now.
I will speak to it tonight, and I will suggest to you that you need to review the legislation governing councils and their ability to speak on issues that are either before the courts or could be before the courts.
There's no more closed session on this. There's no more closed session on this. This is speak to it in open now.
Mr. Lang,
come accountable. Come accountable, Dan.
Mr. Lang, I will follow the law. I will follow the legislation that all of us are governed by. It's not merely that I am I am precluded from providing comment in open session. All of us have legislation provincially and federally that we must follow when it comes to an issue that either is before the courts or could be before the courts. And I suggest, if you're not aware of that legislation, that we as a council need to make that request of our CAO and clerk and our legal advisors to make sure that our council knows, and specifically you, Mr. Lang, that you know the legislation that we're governed by.
Then I think you and I should go to that course together, Dan. I'll sit with you together.
I'd be pleased to do that, James. Thank you. So moving on then.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, I think I asked a question there and I wasn't really sure if I got a response.
Yes, I responded that I wouldn't comment in open session on that this evening.
Okay. So I just wanted to add that it's my information, though, that there was no further direction from the commission. So will the commission be undertaking further direction then in the spirit of trying to reach a reasonable resolve to accept payment?
The commission has been operating in that direction for a number of months. We have been doing just that, and that communication continues.
So can you explain how come the payment has not been accepted that's in the possession of the treasurer for the municipality, or sorry, for the SMA?
No, I can't do that.
So there's no reason why there would be money.
There is a reason. I choose not to share that in open session.
But I asked you earlier, and you said that it's, again, that it's your direction that would be done so that there could be cooperation and a reasonable result to this.
The direction was that I would move that issue forward with the commission as a suggestion from this council.
And just a general question, has the commission considered having individuals make payments at the respective municipal office that contributes to the SMA so that the municipalities could remit to the SMA so there was no issues with receiving payment?
I'm not sure I follow your question.
Well, I'm wondering if it's possible, or if the SMA is considered asking its municipalities and shareholders if they would accept payment for the necessary access fees and then remit those to the SMA.
No, the commission hasn't had that discussion, and I see no reason why there would be that discussion.
Well, Deputy Mayor, there's definitely a reason why, because we certainly have a case at hand here where an individual has expressed their ability to make payment and it has not been accepted by the person receiving it. So if that individual or commission body is not going to accept it, then maybe the municipalities that are shareholders to it would, and remit that fee then back to the SMA. So those are my points.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that suggestion, and certainly we are open to discussion in terms of how we can find some medium ground that would be acceptable to all parties. As I indicated, that discussion and interaction continues. There is a lot of history that council has not. I'll just leave it at that. Councillor Lang, would you like to have the last comment on this issue?
I'm not going to say any more. Apparently to you, this is funny. So I'm not going to say any more than this isn't a laughing matter. And I think we need to move forward positively, like I said last meeting. And I think that we need to be transparent. And we're not talking about this in closed session anymore. It's quite public. Let's move forward and do the right thing. Let's do the right thing, Dan. I'm not saying any more on this topic.
Councillor Lang, I'd be very willing. I am very willing to do the right thing. I think the commission has been doing, the commission itself has been doing the right thing for the three municipalities that it serves, for the pilots it serves, for the broader regional community. Now we need to find some middle ground that we can all agree to let the past be the past and move forward. But I do believe the commission has been operating very much in the best interest of the three municipalities we serve, the pilots we serve, and the broader region. So, and again, I'll just conclude with, we're certainly willing to continue to look at solutions that can move us forward and put a stake in the ground and leave the past in the past. So thank you for that. Okay, so, and while I may smile and chuckle from time to time, Councillor Lang, I don't take this issue lightly. You know the situation that's occurred with respect to Facebook posts with respect to myself. None of those things are laughing matters. So I'll leave it at that. Moving on to reports.
Deputy Mayor Gierzak, before we go into reports, if I may, through you, I should have mentioned this when we were doing the agenda. I may ask if before we get into the meat of the council meeting tonight, that we as a council take a moment of silence. This afternoon, we laid to rest one of our Bruce County paramedics. We had quite a community outreach of fire, police, paramedics, and just members of the community for Braden Burberg. Braden was unfortunately taken in a car accident last week and was laid to rest this afternoon in Calvary Cemetery. And if we may, through you, we had an exceptional day to lay Braden to rest and have the support of many first responders in our community come together. And if we can, a brief moment of silence before we go into our council meeting would be greatly appreciated.
Very good suggestion, Councillor Lang. And can I ask perhaps our clerk Fiona to keep note of the clock and give us 30 seconds of silence as we reflect on our community and the many wonderful members we have within our community and those that have passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That was 30 seconds, and I note it corresponds with the Victoria Jubilee Hall here in the background. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Councillor Lang, for bringing that forward. We do have members of our community that are near and dear to us, and these things happen from time to time, and it is important not to forget that and to share that moment of silence when we can. So I do have motion made by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number BLD 2021-23, Plan the Bruce County Official Plan Consultation Report, Good Growth, prepared by Dieter Weltz, Building and Planning Manager, CBO, and in doing so, recommends that staff prepare and submit comments in response to the plan, the Bruce consultation documents based on staff's recommendation and council's input from tonight's discussion. Any questions, comments with respect to the report? Any comments, Mr. Weltz, would like to make? Yes.
Through Deputy Mayor Gierzak. Yeah, it was a lengthy time, and well, with respect to a couple months passing between the work that was done under the Good Growth, where they reflected and reviewed staff's comments to update their numbers to show the potential growth. So I've just been reviewing my comments. The only area that I feel I would like to just expand upon a little bit further, just to bring the council's attention, I'm trying to find that as we speak, is with respect to the sub-regional market area policies. So they've kind of grouped us together, similar to planning departments areas. So we do have the inland sub-region, which is Erin Eldersley, South Bruce, Brockton, and Huron-Kinloss. And just some additional context to provide to that to bring the council's attention is that what the policy is trying to implement is regional growth areas. So for example, if one community were to fill up, there would be no further expansion of those communities, is our understanding, until those other communities within the sub-region have also seen growth. So that obviously impacts our local municipality quite dearly when we're respect to servicing, for example, when we're trying to invest in our community and we're anticipating growth, but then we're limited to that growth when trying to develop that infrastructure that's necessary. So that's one area that I feel that I could expand upon in my comments, that I was pretty brief with just stating that we're not supportive of that, but I could expand upon that further just to conclude my comments there.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Huckshin.
Thank you. Thanks, Dieter. It just really points out to me that Saugeen Shores doesn't seem to be hindered at all with their growth. So I'd hate to see them put the brakes on any of us, especially if they're trying to group us in that larger group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Huckshin, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number BLDG 2021-22, Ontario Super Storage Inc. Site Plan Control Agreement Amendment, prepared by Dieter Wiltz, Building and Planning Manager, CBO, and in doing so approves bringing forward a bylaw to amend Schedule B of the Site Plan Control Agreement 2018-25 as recommended by staff. Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. We have a motion made by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number BLDG 2021-21, Lamoureux Limited Services Agreement, prepared by Dieter Weltz, Building and Planning Manager, CBO, and in doing so approves bringing forward a bylaw for the Corporation of the Municipality of Brockton to enter into agreement with Lynn Lamoureux for the purpose of the limited service agreement. Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you, the motion carries. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Huckshin, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approves report number BLDG 2021-24, Walker West Estates Inc., Block 50, Municipality of Brockton Site Plan Control Agreement, prepared by Dieter Weltz, Building and Planning Manager, CBO, and in doing so approves a bylaw coming forward, entering into a site plan control agreement with Mr. Bill Clancy, President, Walker West Estates, Inc., for Block 50 Plan 3M-253, Brockton, within the Walker West Subdivision, Walkerton. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion carries. Moving on to a motion moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number UT 2021-13-2021, Water and Wastewater Reserve Capacity Analysis, prepared by Greg Furtney, Director of Operations for information purposes. Any questions? Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor, just to acknowledge the report and thank Director Furtney for being prudent and ensuring this is done in a timely manner. You know, I think it's as we experience considerable growth in the municipality that we are apprised of our volumes and what we can deliver on. So with that, my question is that are we currently undertaking applications for grants or other infrastructure funding to alleviate some of the costs that might be a pressure for the municipality to expand?
Mr. Fortney.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak, to Councillor Elphick. We have not as yet. I'm going to be working on a proposal for council's consideration for the 2022 capital budget for a full needs study, which will complement the things that we've already done so far to date. And with that, we will definitely be using any opportunity we can get for funding for those projects.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
I have two questions. The first one is good news that our water and wastewater reserves are in pretty good shape. That's a very expensive infrastructure. So now they did talk about the standpipe, which is the water tower, is at 85%. So the question I guess I have, Deputy Mayor Gerzak, through you to
Greg?
What's that?
To Mr. Fortney.
Yeah, it was to Greg. I was wondering about, is a concern related to fighting fires? Does the time of year come into play? Because I know if you take a look at that water tower now on a hot day, you can actually see where the water lies. And in the summertime, it does drop off. It always does. So just wondering, first question then is, where is the concern when it gets to 85%? Is it firefighting? Is it the quality of water? What is it? And the second question relates to Lake Roslyn. For years, we've been getting the reports from Lake Roslyn. They've got two wells. They got a drilled well number 3 and a shallow dug spring well. And there's always been quantity issues at certain times, especially the summer. Yet the report doesn't really speak to that. It speaks to 33 ERUs, which means that there can be, we were always told that we were pretty much at max for the system, but this sort of says there'd be 33 more units that could go onto the system. So 2 questions, Greg. First off is with regards to the standpipe, where is the concern? Second question is Lake Roslyn. It seems to be this report seems to be inconsistent with what we've seen for years, that we have concerns with water at Lake Roslyn.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gerzak, to Councillor Adams. For question 1, it's not necessarily seasonal. It depends on when you actually look at the towers. They fill and refill on an as-needed basis. So they're constantly being filled or drained. Obviously, a fire situation would drain a tower more quickly. The point of the standpipe is twofold. One is capacity, so that the amount of, or so that the pumps aren't running on a continuous basis. And number 2, for additional pressure. So gravity pressure for the existing customers. As for question number 2 of Lake Roslyn, I have addressed that with BM Ross, who did the analysis. And we're looking at water quantity, not necessarily water quality. And so they've done a tabletop exercise to establish these items. But certainly it would be a bigger question for us to look at with regards to, is it safe? Do we have the ability to do more water at Lake Roslyn or not? So it's a bigger question, I guess is my answer to your question, is that we need to look at this a little bit more closely. And certainly a needs study will help with that. And Lake Roslyn will be included in that needs study, because there's anecdotal information that we've been getting. And then there's also information from our annual reports from the Ministry of Environment that suggests that that's not necessarily the case, a water shortage. So we still have to figure that out. This was purely an exercise, tabletop exercise, based on data that we could provide the engineers at the time. And it may or may not be an exact science that we'll be working with. So we'll have to keep these things in mind as we move forward.
Thank you, Greg. The 33 units was a real surprise to me. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, as Mr. Fortin indicated, not a real science. It's a tabletop at this point, so will be important to monitor as we go forward. So the motion has been read. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number BL 2020-101, Lake Roslyn Public Comments on Traffic and Parking Bylaw, prepared by Fiona Hamilton, Clerk, Sarah Johnson, Junior Deputy Clerk, and Lisa McDonald, Bylaw Enforcement Officer. And in doing so, approves a bylaw coming forward to amend the consolidated traffic and parking bylaw to include the following restrictions for parking along Lake Roslyn, prohibit parking on the west side of Lake Roslyn Road 1 from Lake Roslyn Road 2 to Lake Roslyn Road 6. Questions, comments? Seeing none, the motion has been read. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And our next motion, moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Adams, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number CLK 2021-26, COVID-19 Municipal Response, August 24th, 2021. Update prepared by Sarah Johnson, Junior Deputy Clerk, for information purposes, and further confirms and ratifies all operational decisions, procedures, and cancellations put in place by staff and the Municipal Emergency Control Group in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. And our next motion, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approves report number REC 2021-19 ICIP, Transfer Payment Agreement Soccer Park Washroom and Equipment Storage Building, prepared by Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services, and in doing so, approves a bylaw coming forward, entering into a transfer payment agreement for project number 2019-10-1-14-19-105-54901-7783-499. Questions or comments? Councillor Lang.
I'll just comment briefly. I think this is a great opportunity here, and when we look at our strategic plan, what we've gone through with countless hours in the years past for our master plan for recreation, Mark, the hours, many hours that you've put into this. I'll speak selfishly on behalf of somebody that before even I started on council as a member of the recreation community. Thank you. Breath of fresh air, and excited for the future on this. So hopefully we can move forward and continue to build off all this.
Well said. Thank you. Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor. I certainly struggled with the first report as it related to this agreement and the funding that we were going to be receiving, and more so because the construct of the East Ridge Business Park in this area, I think, remains sort of subject to council's direction, and I want to make sure that whatever we do here, we get it right. That we ensure that this project is one that is going to reflect well on the municipality, and that we don't have any hiccups. And through you to Mark, I recall from our previous discussions that we do have a bit of runway on completing this project, that I think it was until 2027. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm just wondering through you, Deputy Mayor, to staff, if this is a project that we'll be proceeding with ASAP, or whether it makes sense to enter into this agreement, but to take a bit of breathing room and make sure that the design, the concept, the location are all properly selected so that we can have this done properly.
Okay. Interesting question. Mr. Coleman.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak, thank you. We do have some time to complete the project. There is a design for the project building. There is some leeway in the exact location of the building on site. It's not problematic. The funding agency in forwarding the agreement does ask that the agreement be signed and returned by September 3rd. And it is this fall that we were planning on initiating the project management committee and moving towards tendering a portion of the project in terms of extending the water the sewer and hydro service into the building site area, with construction potentially starting in 2022 as part of next year's budget process.
And if I may
Certainly.
just ask one more question as it relates to the cost. So I understand that in our Brockton 2021 budget, there was $240,000 set aside for this project, plus the transfer contributions for $880,000 being the total. What portion of that, if you know offhand, or has there been any reevaluation of those costs? Just given with the pandemic, we've certainly seen construction costs and materials increase. And I'm just wondering if that takes into account any cost overruns that we might face, because I'm not assuming, I know that Brockton will be left picking up any sort of overages.
Let's give perhaps Mr. Coleman an opportunity to comment before we go to Councillor Lang.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. The numbers that are noted in the grant application are the numbers that were in the approval, were the numbers submitted as part of the grant application. And those numbers would have been supplied in part by the original consultants in terms of the design of the building and the project site. I felt that they were a little elevated at the time. We really won't know until we get to the RFP or tendering process as to what the numbers may be. I think there's wiggle room if there is any budgetary challenges. It is a commercial grade building with some very durable finishes in terms of walls, windows, and such. Square footage could be potentially revisited if we had to, if there was any costing challenges. I can't really say for certain whether the project will be under what was submitted in the grant application or it will be on par with the grant application at this time.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Lang.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, actually, through you, Deputy Mayor, and Mark spoke to the RFP, and I was going to talk a little bit about that. But our recreation group, which is a very active group, we've talked about this. We were supposed to meet the other night, unfortunately. Due to personal family commitments, we weren't able to. But we've talked about what the challenges would be above and beyond for fundraising commitments and that as such. But no, we talked about the RFPs and where our plan would be forward, and our recreation group is on board to take on any challenges above and beyond what is in the initial plan. So. I won't say any more of that, but we got a good group behind the project and we're excited for it.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I guess I will. I'm going to rain on the party here just a little bit. Again, the last time I did thank the province and feds for jumping in. They try to support these projects locally, but fundamentally it just was opposed when it was a $477,000 washroom facility, and then it went to $900,000. We've got federal and provincial money. There's one taxpayer, as they say, but it's still going to cost Brockton about $250,000. I talked to a lot of soccer people who didn't understand the need for that, but they're also taxpayers. But you know what? I hope the building looks beautiful. Again, it's a Bruce Power complex, so perhaps they'll get a little bit of extra thanks for that. And I guess, as I said, I wasn't going to say anything, but I am fundamentally opposed to spending money that I don't think is wise. So that's just the way I am, I guess, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Adams, for rounding out those thoughts and ideas. The motion has been moved, seconded, and read. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Alphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approves report number REC 2021-20 Canada Community Revitalization Fund Contribution Agreement for the Market Garden, prepared by Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services, and in doing so authorizes a bylaw coming forward entering into a contribution agreement for project number 1000193. Any questions or comments? Councillor Hutchin and then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mark, it seems to me the original grant application, we were asking for 98,000. Was that the right amount? But we're getting 55. It's wonderful we're getting 55, but I'm just wondering why we didn't get 98. Do you know what they wouldn't cover?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, this is a second grant application that we submitted and received approval very quickly for through FedDev Southern Ontario. The initial grant application, we're still waiting word on, which is through the Canada Healthy Community Initiatives, which was for 89,000. So if we're lucky, we'll be successful on both grants and fully funded.
That is awesome news. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Adams. You're on mute.
Thanks, guys. This is a really worthwhile project as I see it, and so fully support it. And I was wondering last year, I believe it might have been BIA, but there was a couple of nice initiatives around Christmas time using that park facility. And I'm wondering if it will be ready this year so it can be used again for that. And really kind of a nice huddling spot over the Christmas time. And if we can decorate it up, I think it'd be great if it was going to be done in time. Just wondering if that would be the plan.
Director Coleman.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we will see how the tendering construction process starts and or begins and partially gets established this fall. Certainly, if that event is going to occur again, we can do our best to make sure that the site is prepped or tidied up to a certain point that it is still usable. The balance of work would be completed in May and June of next year.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor of this motion? That motion carries. Thank you. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Hutchin, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number CLK 2021-26, Elections Canada Federal Election Polling Place Lease Agreements, prepared by Sarah Johnson, Junior Deputy Clerk, and Mark Coleman, Director of Community Services, and in doing so approves bylaws coming forward to enter into polling place lease agreements with Elections Canada for the use of Cargill and Walkerton community centers as polling locations for the 2021 federal election. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. And we have a motion made by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number CAO 2021-15 OPP, Alternate Service Delivery Location Memorandum of Understanding, prepared by Sonia Watson, Chief Administrative Officer, and in doing so approves a bylaw coming forward to authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with the OPP for the use of the Greenock Municipal Building and any minor amendments as required. Any questions? Councillor Elphick.
And through you, Deputy Mayor, just a comment that I think this is a great initiative for Brockton to be involved in, and certainly to hopefully enhance visibility in our outlining hamlets. So that I certainly hope that we do see usage of this by our policing partners, and certainly by entering into this agreement, we will. So I just wanted to recognize the work of staff, and hopefully we will hear some positive feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, very positive to get additional use out of our existing assets. So thank you. All those in favor? The motion carries. Motion moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives report number CAO 2021-16, Council Remuneration 2023 through 2026, prepared by Trish Sarator, Chief Financial Officer, Fiona Hamilton, Clerk, and Sonia Watson, Chief Administrative Officer. And in doing so, approves staff's recommendation on an annual increase in accordance with the salary administration policy salary grid annual economic adjustment with the annual Statistics Canada Ontario Consumer Price Index for the 12 months ended August the 31st. Question from Councillor Hutchin.
Thank you very much. Seems to me when I was on council back in 2010 to 14, we had visited this and it was supposed to be just increased annually by the cost of living. And then I don't know what happened in the last term, but I do know now that the remuneration is fully taxable, which does have an effect on the bottom line. And I would also like to say that comparing the workload now compared to my previous term, it is a lot more work because we're such a growing community. I'm not complaining, but I think there should be a slight increase.
Thank you. Further questions and comments? First from Councillor Elphick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. I do not support the recommendation in the report. I would recommend that, if anything, we do reconvene the Council Remuneration Committee. I do not believe that the Consumer Price Index is a good indicator for, like Councillor Hutchins said, other factors that impact the work and the responsibilities of the positions. And I think that the same is true for staff. I think that municipal settlements have been around 1.6% over the last 5 years. And I think that our staff have not received recognition for that in all of those 5 years, some higher, some lower. But it will fundamentally cause us to, once again, be behind, and we'll be playing catch up again if we use the indicators as it relates to inflation. That will only allow us to keep pace, keep par with effective remuneration, and we should be ahead of that, I think, in recognizing the skills and abilities of not only our staff, but also those who are elected to service our ratepayers to ensure that effective decisions are made. So I don't support the report as it's currently drafted, and I would support it if it were to be amended to reconvene the Council Remuneration Committee for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor Gerzak. Those of us that were on the last council, just to go back a little bit of information for everyone. I don't believe we took an increase for the first 3 years, maybe the whole 4-year period, Dan. I think it was 0. And what ended up happening, of course, was then we were significantly far behind. Most of the councils in the area, we are on par pretty much with most of the councils in the area. And so we, when the government took away the partial tax-free portion, about 2 years before the end of our term, we had an independent group come and make the recommendations. And I thought they did, Dan, I thought they did a real good job. Dean was on it as well. I fully support that report. I took a look at it again because I've got the file on it. They did some good work. And the idea was to take it away from council, so you don't do 0 increases for so many years, and then somebody does a catch up and it looks like 15%. But the reality is you've been 20% forever behind. So I think it's a fair and consistent process. And that's what the group, the independent group, wasn't councillors that did it. Independent group tried to have a fair, consistent group and program, and also that inevitably it doesn't get the catch up report. So I think it's worked personally, and I support the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Adams. And Councillor Elphick.
Sorry, just a point of clarification through you to Councillor Adams. It supports the report. The report, as I understand it, being that we would move to the Consumer Price Index model. Is that what Councillor Adams is in support of? Because I thought what I heard him say was a little bit different.
I believe it was CPI. Trish can probably help us with this, but I believe what we're looking at doing is continuing the program that was put in place 4 years ago.
Thank you for asking that question, Councillor Elphick. I had the same concern. So perhaps Trish can clarify that a little bit for us.
So through you, Deputy Mayor Gerzak. So the proposal is slightly different than what the current term of council is receiving. The current term of council is receiving a little bit of a catch-up plus a percentage I think it's 1.5% unless CPI is higher, then you guys get the 2% plus the CPI. This is just recommending that council would receive the CPI going forward for the next term, so that this council has received the catch up, and then you're supposed to be caught up to what the committee had thought was a reasonable rate, and then going forward, keeping it at the CPI. Same with staff.
And is that consistent with the previous report that our committee put forward?
So through you, Mayor Deputy Gierzak, the prior committee did recommend that the council continue going forward using CPI so that you guys do not fall behind as you had before.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Councillor Adams was right on in his comments and support for the work that the previous committee had done moving forward. Any further comment? If anyone other than Councillor Elphick, as he's had an opportunity twice at this point? Seeing no other comments coming forward, please, Councillor Elphick.
Sorry, and just a point of clarification. So I understood the current as Trish outlined that it was the 2 and then the 1.5 or CPI, whichever is greater. So in a situation like in 2020 where it was less than 1.5, it wouldn't be 1.5 in those next years then. So that's I think where there's some confusion, is that it wouldn't be the 1.5 increase. It would just be whatever the rate is. So the CPI rate. So if the CPI rate was 0.5, then it would be 0.5 in 2023, right? Is that what this is saying?
Go ahead, Trish, please.
Sorry, so
Sarah
yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak. So as of 2023, my report is recommending that it's whatever the CPI is as of the end of August, which gets posted in September. Currently, right now, the way it is structured, it is the 2% to help council catch up. And then the council remuneration committee put a 1.5% in to also help catch council up to where they should be. And I believe it was 2 terms of council that received a 0% increase. I could be wrong, it might just be 1, but I think it was 2. But they very highly recommended that council going forward do not carry on that practice and use the CPI rate to ensure they stay consistent. So in 2023, in September, it'll be posted. If it's 1%, then the increase for 2023 council would be 1%. If it is 0.5%, it would be 0.5. It wouldn't be the 2% base plus anything else. It would just be whatever CPI is posted as.
And that's slightly different than what I understood was saying. So thank you for clarifying that, because the 2 and the 1.5 would expire and we'd be going strictly off of CPI, which is what I understood, and my comments are the same. I don't support that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Adams, try to wrap this up if you can.
Yeah, real quick, Dan. And I think it's important, maybe we have some people watching this that they don't think that we're making the amount of money that Toronto councillors are. When we left the last term without any increases, Dan, I believe it was around 11,000 a year for councillors. And now I think it's somewhere around 14 after the little bit of a bump up because of, again, the federal government eliminated the tax saving on that. So we're making around 14,000 a year as councillors. And to Kim's comments, it's an incredible number of hours for that. So I think the taxpayer is getting pretty good value. But I think it's important to note that people don't think we're making $80,000 a year like some city councillors are. It's much less. You do it for the community.
And not only do they have $80,000 to $100,000 as their salary, they also have an allocation for their own staff. So it is quite a bit of assistance over and above that. The motion has been moved, it has been seconded and read. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. And we have a motion made by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton approve payment of the accounts in the amount of $2,029,961.36. All those in favor? Opposed? I believe that motion carries. Councillor Elphick, your hand went up late on my screen. Were you opposed or did you approve? Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. And we have a motion made by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approve raising the Grey Bruce Labour Council's Labor Day flag on the community flagpole located at Jackson Street and Yonge Street in Walkerton for a period of 1 week, beginning August 31st, 2021 to September 7th, 2021, in recognition of Labor Day on September 6th, 2021. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion carries. And our next motion, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby receives all items provided in section 12 information. That motion made by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso. Any questions or comments? Councillor Lang, and then Councillor Lifeso.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak, item 12.5, golf cart, golf cart pilot here in Kinloss, what they're doing at for their municipality. That'd be something that I would support, and like our staff to bring forward for our groups along the lake. Yeah, reading the report and the laws on the lines of it in 50 kilometers or less. I think it's a modern approach. I think it's a neat project for those who are individuals who spend time at their cottage or in areas, or even in urban towns, small towns like Elmwood or Cargill, Chepstow, Walkerton. They have the ability to use a golf cart. I think it's a really neat idea. And I think that's something that we can jump on board. So I would support that and maybe have something come forward.
Okay, thank you. So I think we had Councillor Lifeso, then Councillor Hutchin, and then a response from CAO Watson. Dean, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring forward 12.8.
Okay. Any specific comments with respect to 12.8?
No, I mean, obviously it's only male oriented, but I do think, it should be, and it's completely out of our jurisdiction. But I do think that it is, they shouldn't make them free, covered under OHIP.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hutchin.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say I support James's support of 12.5. Living in the large hamlet of Chepstow, we probably have 5 or 6 golf carts.
Yeah,
and they do drive in over 80 zones.
And are they all electric golf carts? Or
no, there was one gas fired one that used to backfire all the time.
Yeah. But it does seem to be a very green way to get around. And if it's just heading downtown to do a little bit of grocery shopping, eases up on the parking and a bunch of things. So that seems to make a lot of sense. CAO Sonia.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. I just did want to comment that this is a pilot program at this point to determine how this is going to work. So we can look into it further. I don't know if there's the opportunity for other municipalities to participate at this point, being it was the province that chose the 2 locations, which was, I know, surprising to hear in Kinloss at the beginning. So we can get more information though if to bring forward.
Yeah, I think, well, between Councillor Hutchin, Lang, and myself, there seems to be a fair bit of enthusiasm for getting more information. So if you can do that, it would be much appreciated.
I would think it was because of the owners of the Fig in Ripley making all those deliveries during COVID. That's why they were selected.
You could be right.
I thought they would do that on their bikes as opposed to carts, but anyway. Okay. So the motion has been moved, seconded, and read. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. And next, we have motion made by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton. Am I ahead of myself? Just keep me on track here. Yep, we're at bylaws. Motion moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton authorize that the following bylaws be read, enacted, signed, sealed, and numbered as follows. Bylaw 2021-108-24, Jackson Street Encroachment Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-109-325, Durham Street Encroachment Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-110, Soccer Park Washroom and Equipment Storage ICIP Community Culture and Recreation Stream Transfer Payment Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-111, the Market Garden Canada Community Revitalization Fund Contribution Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-112, Elections Canada Cargill Community Center Lease Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-113, Elections Canada Walkerton Community Center Lease Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-114, Amend Consolidated Traffic and Parking Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-115, OPP Alternate Service Delivery Location Memorandum of Understanding Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-116, Lamoureux Weimer Lane Limited Service Agreement Bylaw. Bylaw 2021-117, amend Ontario Superstorage Inc. Site Plan Control Agreement Bylaw. And Bylaw 2021-18, Walker West Subdivision Site Plan Agreement Bylaw. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And now, move from there. New business brought forward by councillors. Is there any new business for the benefit of the municipality of Brockton? Seeing none, we do have a motion moved by Councillor Hutchins, seconded by Councillor Adams, that the council of the municipality of Brockton enter into closed session at 8:41 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local subdivision agreement. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, subdivision agreement, contract billing model agreement, negotiation update. Fiona, was there any other reason for us to go in camera this evening?
Through you, Mayor Peabody, I think those reasons.
Or Deputy Mayor Gerzak?
Sorry. Habits are definitely difficult to break. I'm sorry. I think the reasons provided in the motion would cover any of the reports that were mentioned and published on the agenda. If your question is whether there's any other discussion, I think if council intended to want to discuss any matters in closed session that were not already on the formal agenda, then I would suggest that you identify which reason and provide a general nature for council to consider. But if you're satisfied with only the items that are already on the agenda, I think that would be sufficient description and reasons provided.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of this motion? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. So we do move into closed session now to return at a later time this evening. And to our guests, if you're still there, we look forward to seeing you when we get back. Just give others an opportunity to join us. Fiona, if you believe we have everybody who's going to join us for the conclusion of this meeting, let me know and we can continue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gierzak. I think we do have a quorum and I think we could continue.
Okay, thank you. So welcome back to the open session of August 24th, 2021 council meeting. We have a motion moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton hereby approves the direction provided to staff in closed session. All those in favor? The motion carries. And we have a motion moved by Councillor Elphick, seconded by Councillor Lang, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton supports the request for draft plan extension from Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited, pending comments from the agency review. Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion? That motion carries. And we have a motion made by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Elphick, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton authorize that the following bylaw be read, enacted, signed, sealed, and numbered as follows. Bylaw 2021-119, August 24, 2021, confirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? That motion carries. And finally, we have a motion made by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Lifeso, that the Council of the Municipality of Brockton does now adjourn at 9:45 p.m. to meet again on August the 26th, 21 to review strategic planning. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. And Sonia's even voting on that one.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for all your attention during this long meeting, a number of very important topics, and thank you for your patience as I stepped council through the meeting this evening. Have a great rest of the evening and look forward to seeing you